guys, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to an art journal tutorial. This one is part of the Napkin series, Napkin Journaling. So today I am using a bit of a different napkin. This one has an all-over pattern. Not really because it's watercolory. It's not something I can use or I'm thinking strongly for a focal point, so I'm going to use it in a different way. I am going to use this napkin as an Insta-Background that's going to put that first layer of color, beautiful, beautiful color. Now I'm working in my Canson Mixed Media 9 by 12 art journal, and I've taken the pages out of the coils and I'm doing them separately. That gives me the opportunity to lay it flat, and it just makes it easier for the process, keeps everything clean. So I've taped off the edge, and before putting that painter's tape on there, I've stuck it on my shirt and on my jeans. So it's not quite so tacky, because I find if I don't, it tends to lift up some of the paper. So I'm gluing down the entire napkin. Now, this one has an all over pattern, all over color, but you could use bits and pieces of napkins and collage them on and get the same effect. In fact, I did that in another video, and I will put a link to it to show you that similar type effect. It's not quite as Insta because you're having ripped up pieces. I'm using my Liquitex Basics matte fluid medium on here, and I love that for gluing things down, especially napkins. I find it just works incredibly well. So I love the colors on this are beyond spectacular. Now I'd like to thank Paula, who's sent this napkin to me with a whole bunch of other napkins as happy mail. Now I want to break up the pattern. Remember, it's an Insta-Background, so it's simply, I could use it as is, but I'm using it as the first layer of color. So instead of me going in and blending paints, I've just put the napkin down. Now I'm taking some thickened gesso, but you can buy pre-made thick gesso if you don't have gesso that has thickened on its own. And I'm pushing that through this maidenhair fern stencil. I want to add some texture to this background, but I also want to add some pattern, and I want to break up that color. Remember, it's all about building those layers. Putting the gesso through the stencil is not a perfect process. You're not going to get perfectly clean lines. There will be some seepage underneath, and as part of this technique, that's what I like. So now that this is all broken up, here is the background that was created, and I absolutely loved it. In fact, I have another one of these napkins, and I'm going to do something different with it than what I did here. In the process of creating, when I looked at that napkin, I loved it, but it just, to me, it looked like it needed some contrast. Black I felt was going to be too harsh, so I came in with Prussian blue in my wisteria stencil, and I'm stenciling in some pattern. And this dramatically changes the background. This is a kaleidoscope pattern. And I like how this kaleidoscope in this 6-inch, I have it in the 12-inch and I've loved it. So I've got the 6-inch. It kind of mirrors what's going on with the maidenhair fern. It looks similar to some degree. So I'm a bit of regretting the wisteria stencil here, but in the end, whatever you do, then you proceed. You solve that problem. It gives you different choices to make down the road. And if you were doing it again, I would just skip the wisteria stencil at this stage. I love the kaleidoscope one and the maidenhair fern, but it's all about exploring and having fun. So now that I have this all over pattern, bright, beautiful colors because of my Insta-Background, I grabbed this template. Now, you can buy hexagon templates. You can make your own hexagon templates. This is actually from the throwaway pieces from a game. When you punch out the pieces that you use in the game, this was left over. And I've always wanted a hexagon template, so that's why I saved it. So I'm drawing on here these hexagons with my Stabilo All Pencil, which is water soluble, which means I can go in with a baby wipe and get rid of them. Now, the mistake I made here is I was assuming that my napkin was non-porous because I put matte medium over the top, but it wasn't quite. So I would have taken at that step, put a coat of gel medium on it, another making sure that everything's covered so that I could remove it if something goes wrong, or clear gesso before I did this. And that would just make everything a little bit easier down the road. But, again, you make it work. Whatever you deal yourself, you make it work. So I've drawn those on, and it's an all over pattern. And now I'm using some of the Prussian blue, and I'm activating the Stabilo and using the floating acrylic technique to shade these hexagon shapes. It's making them pop. It's making them, and I've also decided which hexagon is going on top of which one. So I did go in and I did erase where they overlapped, where I didn't want that. And I obviously didn't get that footage, so I apologize. And looking back at this stage, you could leave it at this stage without we're going to do some negative painting. And that gives a little bit different effect. So again, lots of choices. It's like, which path are you taking? Are you going left? Are you going right? There is no right or wrong. But whatever choice you make will impact all the choices you're going to have to make down the road and where inevitably the page is going to end up. So I love this cascade of hexagon shapes, and the hexagon shapes work really well with that kaleidoscope pattern, which tends to have it in it, and to some degree the maidenhair fern. How do I know which stencils work well or what shapes work well? A lot of that is trial and error. As you create and try different things, you will figure it out. So while I could have left it there, what I am doing now is I am painting out the negative space. Now, instead of painting it white, which you've seen me doing, or black or blue, I am now painting it out with a mixture of, and it ends up being more the quinacridone magenta than the orange. And where did I get the colors? I pulled the colors from what was in the background, and I'm adding a little bit of gesso there to get that pink. And my goal is not to totally get rid of all the pattern underneath. Some of that is peeking through. It is now pushed back, and it's just adding interest because what's in the hexagon is full force, and what's now being painted over is muted and pushed back. The modeling paste or the gesso that we put through the stencil is adding texture. The napkin is adding texture. So there's a lot of texture in the background. I love using a angle brush on here. It just makes it a little bit easier to get into the nooks and crannies. And I have a selection of angle brushes that have different sizes. So if you struggle making it neat, try an angle brush. So I'm liking that pink in there. And where I went a little more orange, I do go back and add another layer of pink. But it's not one tone that I've added. And I think that's important. That adds a lot of interest to your page. So at this stage, I mean, we're very far removed. Nobody's going to know that you've used a napkin on this page. It's a jump start. It's a tool that you can use. So if you have lots of napkins, or throw them down, you can mix and match the napkins and make a collaged background. Now I'm using the floating acrylic technique, and I'm going on the outside of the shapes now that I have the background on there. And this is going to make these hexagons stand out a little bit more than they are. This process, doing the floating acrylic technique, it's a bit of a long process. It takes time. I find it very, very zen. And this, with the hexagon shapes and straight edges, is really easy. So this is a good one if you want to practice your floating acrylic technique. And here I'm using black because I've decided that I want a little bit more contrast than the Prussian blue. All I have in that little plastic container is just some garbage from something that I purchased. And there's just water in there to doing the floating acrylic technique instead of my tub of water. I wanted to brighten it up a little bit, so I'm splattering with white. And it covers up any mistakes and kind of makes everything work more cohesively. It's just the magic of splattering. The products that I use, if I can find them, will be in the description box below. And if you shop through my Amazon links, I do get a commission. Full disclosure here, but it doesn't cost you any more. Please always check to make sure that you are getting the right price. They change the prices on what I link, the right price, and check out shipping too. Now I had this coloring book, and it had these flowers in it, and I thought, okay, I've had this for over 4 years because I bought it before I moved to the island, and I haven't used them. So you know what? Today was the day. So the one I'm holding is the one that is. And what I decided to do was edit it. It was a little too big, and I want it more the round shape on it. And again, it plays with that kaleidoscope pattern in the background. I cut out 3 because I wanted 3. Now I'm editing, I'm going through my sentiments. Some are too big. I want bolder. I like this with all the white, but it's a little too little. This one, I like it's dark enough and big enough. So I hem and I haw, and typically what I do is I take pictures of both and then I look at it. Or when I'm doing it for a video, I'm looking up in the camera and I'm seeing what it looks like from afar. And that's a great way of checking. Love when I put some of them patterns or focal images going off the page. gluing this down with my Liquitex Basics Fluid Matte Medium. Final decision time with the sentiments. My sentiment packs are available as digital downloads at ninniesnapkins.com. There is a link in the description box if you want to go check out all the different packs that are available. There's different themes. You can scroll through the pictures and see exactly what goes in each pack and match them to your journaling style. Things that you would be saying, things that inspire you. So I want to play with colorizing some of the flowers. I'm not sure I want to keep them white. So I am now putting a coat of clear gesso on that. And what that will allow me to do is if I try something and it doesn't work, I should be able to lift off the color. And you're going to see that in a minute. I'm doing some shading around the flowers, around the sentiment to make them stand out a little bit more. And as you can see, when I put the flowers on and the sentiment, that became the top layer and it pushed back those hexagons. They are not prominent anymore. They are just part of the background. And I'm loving how that kaleidoscope pattern really works with the hexagon shape. And the kaleidoscope pattern works with the focal image that I've chosen. And I'm doing the shading now while that clear gesso that I applied to the flowers dries. So I'm mixing the pink and the yellow, and I'm just going to go in and paint this. And as I'm looking at this now, I really like the pink, but in the moment I did not. And so I grabbed the baby wipe and I wiped it off. And you can see that was because I put the clear gesso on there. It allowed me to pull it off. It also will now take the paint better than raw paper. So there's two reasons to use gesso. Clear because I want to keep it. I don't want to white out the lines. So I'm liking the yellow in the background. So I'm thinking, oh, I want to bring out the yellow. So I'm painting the centers of the flower yellow and parts of it yellow. That warms up the page quite a bit. And I'm liking the effect of this. You know, I'm toying with the idea of painting painting the flowers, and then I realize I don't need to paint the entire flower. I can just add a little bit of color. If you don't follow me on Instagram, please go to Instagram and follow me at Creative Katie. You can see what I'm up to. And then you can see what's being posted in my video, so you know what's up and may then come to YouTube and watch the video. So adding these colors really changed the feel of this page. Close-ups of the finished page are coming next. Thank you so much for joining me, for subscribing to my channel, and leaving comments. Give me a thumbs up, ask a question. I answer every comment. Keep creating.